He's a bitter man.
Black Country Xtra.
Special cushion, check. Imodium, check. We're back! Welcome to Nostalgia and Comedy on Black Country Xtra. I am your host, Dave Dinsdale. Welcome to the wonderful world of Dinsey. With me in the studio, we have historian and roving reporter Paul Jennings.
Hello.
And we welcome back as our special guest, after the request we had following your last appearance, show business legend Johnny Body Sorrow.
And thank you, Mother.
In today's programme, where we are looking to build back Barmere, we should be reviewing Cradley Heath's Bushfest 2021, the smallest comedy festival in the world. We shall also once again be speaking with Pete Towler, who is the managing director of Mad O'Rourke's Pie Factory in Tipton. And of course, we should be playing more of the old adverts. We're actually getting requests to get certain products up there now. But first, I've had an email from Mary Parks of Rowley Regis. She says, "Dear Jim, can you fix it for me to Donny Osmond with a chocolate mousse?" God, she's getting worse. P.S. Why do you never play Johnnie Casson on your show? Good point. So to start us off, here is a clip of Johnnie Casson live.
Wow. My God. Now then. You know, I never get applause like that when I finish. And that was a lovely receipt. It's nice to get a warm hand on your opening. And, you know... Did you see the news at tea time? Australian scientists have discovered a foodstuff that lowers the sex drive in men. It's called wedding cake. Right now. Now then, I've come all the way from Blackpool today, so that'll give you some idea how popular I'm up there. And, you know, you're not supposed to use your mobile phone when you're driving in. And there's a woman in front of me, blabbing away on a mobile, one hand on the steering wheel. Well, she swerved in front of me. I had to brake that hard, I dropped my razor into my cornflakes, you know. Because you realise as you're getting a bit older, don't you, that money's not everything in life, but it keeps you in touch with your children, doesn't it? And, 3 daughters we've got, and they infuriate me. They keep leaving the toilet seat down. And them kids have kept us together. Oh, well, she won't take them, and I'm not having them. And have you noticed these celebrities? They all call the kids balmy names, don't they? Like Tallulah Lilac and Betty Kitnam, the Clonker Ponker. And I think David Beckham started this one. Their little boy, Brooklyn, he was conceived in Brooklyn in New York, so they call the kid in Brooklyn. Jude Law, I think his kid was conceived in India, so they call their kid India. Somebody else was conceived in Rome, and they call their kid Rome, and they think this is new. We did this 30 years ago with 2 of our kids, Back Alley and Tabletop, you know. And, so this fellow's in doctor. He said, "Doctor, can you recommend anything for yellow teeth?" He said, "What about a brown tie?" He said, "Now, do you know there's a knock at the door? Why does the dog always think it's for him?" And fella said to me yesterday, "You're putting some weight on, Johnny." I said, "I know, I've had a lot on my plate recently." I said, I'm on the Fatkins diet, and sickening, my skin don't fit me anymore. And I had my shoes shined in London, and I had to take his word for it. And hey, I'm coming round a bit now. And I've been in Blackpool for a few days. We were windy there the other day. My God, windy! I saw these Siamese twins looking for each other. And one thing you must always remember, you know, that wherever you go in life, well, there you are. And, and if you're ever in Liverpool, never buy a Rolex watch off a man who's out of breath. Right now, So these two fellas are talking in the pub. And one of them said, by this time tomorrow I'll be a happy bunny. He said, why? He said, me and the wife's got a cheap holiday off teletext. 7 o'clock in the morning, we're off for a week. We're dropping everything. His pal said, oh, have a good time. He said, your wife's given up smoking, hasn't she now? He said, oh, I will never smoke cigs ever again. He said, would you mind bringing some back for me? He said, no problem. How many? He said, would you bring me 400? He said, of course I will. So the following Thursday's in the pub. He said, I've got your cigarettes, Albert. He says, fantastic. How much do I owe you? He said, £95. He said, £95? He said, where did you go for your holidays? He said, Torquay.
It's a proper comedian.
Proper comedian.
It's a proper good old-fashioned comedian. We'll be playing some more next week. I'll go and dig somebody else up from the comedians. Now, our roving reporter and local historian, Paul Jennings, went to see Pete Towler at Mad O'Rourke's Pie Factory.
I did.
And we've put up a very nice documentary. In fact, if you want to see Paul's film, there is a film now under the Dave Dinsdale channel on YouTube called Mad O'Rourke's Pie Factory. And we were talking about it last week, about the fact that the pub struggled. Pete went and bought it back and is now doing really well. And did you say he's doing pies by post?
Pies by post.
Wow.
What an innovation.
What an innovation. And you asked him the question about could he name the pubs in the chain, because there were about 15 at the time.
Bear in mind he was really hands-on, yeah.
He was. Okay, well, let's go back and listen to a bit of that interview.
What springs to mind when you think of Tipton in the heart of the Black Country? William Perry, the Tipton Slasher world champion boxer. The extensive canal network, the extensive industry of the Black Country encapsulated in Tipton. Yes, all those things. But I want to talk to you about an institution that's been with us for a number of years and is now a successful company, again, thanks to the efforts of Pete Towler, and that is Mad O'Rourke's Pie Factory. So the pubs, can you name?
Oh God, no, don't.
All right then.
15, isn't it?
I'm sure the listeners will tell us if we've missed any.
Right, so you're talking the Duncow in Shrewsbury.
Yep.
There was the one in Telford, which was...
That was in Ketley.
Ketley in Telford.
Yeah.
It'd be a good one for your listeners to come in and...
this is it.
Come back with a story. There was Coventry. That was Mad Yorick's in Coventry, in the theatre. Mm-hmm. There was the Dry Dock. There was the Kipper House. There was the Sausage Factory. There was... Let's see, Tumbling Sailor in Kidderminster.
Yeah.
Then there's the Worcester Sauce Factory. There was the Droitwich one, which I worked in. Trotter Hall.
Trotter Hall, yeah.
There was one down in Stowe, wasn't it? The Upton Muggery down south. That was the furthest south. There's one or two in between, I'm sure.
Well, all
that's
these,
not bad. I think I've done quite well on that.
I think you've done very well. Any listeners with any others can fill in the blanks and, tell us all about their experiences of the pub companies. So, I mean, Irish theme pubs are totally different to this. I mean, you go into these Irish theme pubs that used to be, and they'd have a bicycle nailed to the wall and a mail order shillelagh, The ironic bit about you'd got two Irish people started out theme pubs with a slight Irish sort of tinge to them, but all these ones, I mean, let's mention like the Dry Dock in Netherton, they all sort of reflected the area, didn't they?
Yeah, very true.
Peculiar, like the Dry Dock was they had to take the roof off the pub and they put the narrowboat inside.
That's right.
And so the people that were serving in there, honestly, people, this was a canal narrowboat inside the pub, and the gunnels, bit of a nautical term there, the gunnels were where the pools were, the beer pools were, and the staff stood inside the narrowboat.
Great pubs, great pubs.
And you got the pack horse in Bewdley, because obviously the drovers' routes and all that sort of thing. various other sort of local. That was the unique.
Yeah, that's a good
selling
point. I probably hadn't thought of that one, but yeah. But I suppose this was one of the first, as you say, themed Irish pubs where you had people like O'Neill's came along and all that. They've all disappeared.
Yep.
And this one's kept going. You know, it's just quite interesting.
Well, it's kept going because of your efforts, to be quite honest.
Well, we hope so. I'd like to think that Colm and Sheena, if they came back, would be quite pleased with how we carried on their branding almost. Because we, first thing I did when I bought the company, because Colm never did it, was trademark the name. You know, and all the beer names, Lumphammer, Sledgehammer. So I trademarked all the names, which is coming quite useful back in time. You know, I know there was a company in America who make Sledgehammer wine.
Yep.
And they wanted to introduce it to the UK, but they had to ask our permission, which we didn't give. So
really?
Yeah. Well, only because they wouldn't give us enough money. That's the only reason. That's you know.
It's nice when England sort of shafts America when in business. It's normally the other way around, isn't it?
But the Americans love it here. We
Do you get many Americans?
Huge amounts of visitors. Say, for example, you mentioned the people from Arabia come in who are expats. Is if you had, say, for example, you had guests from France or Spain or something like that, where else would you bring them?
Without a doubt.
You know, it's an easy loser because it's so unusual inside. It's the place to go.
It's like an alcoholic version of The Prisoner, really, isn't it? You know,
it is. It's different, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I've got to say though, it doesn't rely just on its decor and its slightly kitsch but lovely theme. You could do this on the beer and the pies alone. You know?
Yeah, we'd like to think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll take it from a consumer. You know, you do.
Yeah, we're quite proud of it.
Black Country Extra.
So there is an absolutely beautiful place for performing comedy in the Black Country. It's the place where everybody starts off, and it is the Hollybush in Cradley Heath, run by the wonderful Dave Wolfie Francis. Johnny, last time you were here, you said that you performed there, was it 2006? Opening year?
It must have been, yes.
In fact, didn't you do the opening gig with Gary Delaney?
Correct, I did. I was there before the Purple Curtain.
Really?
Yes, and I must say, I'd like to claim this. I did the gig. I said to Dave Francis Wolfie, you know what would make it feel more like an actual gig?
A theatre?
No, I said, if you put a curtain up.
Yeah.
But, like, at least have a curtain, because it was just like a horrible wall, basically.
Yeah.
And to my surprise and delight,
Yeah.
the next time I went down there was a purple curtain.
Well, he's extremely mean, but occasionally he does invest. I mean,
I think he'd found it on a skip, to be fair.
Well, possibly. He did buy a gazebo for outside. And I went to see a show there recently as part of Bushfest, which we'll talk about in a bit. And the thing actually blew over while the show was on. And it was so cumbersome that they had to close down the gig for half an hour and try and rescue people and whatever.
Only at the Bush.
Only at the Bush.
Only at the Bush.
So, Paul, you're a regular at the Bush as well. What was your first gig there like?
My first gig there, I'd had a hiatus, word of the day, from comedy, and I got the chance to perform at the Bush. I can't remember how I got the chance to perform. I think you might have had something to do with it.
Probably.
Damn you.
Blame me.
Damn you and that Purple Curtain. But, so, and I was nervous, very nervous. I mean, we all get nervous before gigs, but I was especially nervous, like you do, because I hadn't been doing comedy for a while.
Yeah.
And got up there, and it's sort of a stage, isn't it? It's just like a continuation of a raised step, basically. And they're all sitting in anticipation. And it went really, really well. The first couple of lines, I got the laughs, and from there it just coasted. And I just thought, thank you. Really, it was like being warm, wrapped in a warm blanket, it really was. And it was great. And I've loved the place ever since.
Well, there was an actor called Dave Pitt, and he wanted to write a book about his experiences trying to be a comedian. And I interviewed him for a little film I made about the Hollybush, and he perfectly described the place. He said, "It's not a pub, it's a boozer." It is, isn't it? It's a good, proper, old-fashioned boozer.
It is. With decent, warm-hearted people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you get the occasional heckler, but normally it's because they've just wandered in off the street.
or it's
he's behind the bar.
Or it's or Wolfie's been drinking the profits again.
Exactly. I got heckled by Wolfie once, and I thought, how
Only once?
How unprofessional. Yeah.
I was on stage once, and Wolfie came onto the step and started changing the lights.
Oh yeah, he does. There's a clip of him climbing a ladder outside to take a photograph in the middle of somebody's set. But he won't heckle me because he knows I'll bring a bag of logs, which is a prerequisite. You know, you've made it when he asks you to bring either a pallet, or a bag of logs for the fire. It's like performing in a comedy squat, basically.
It is at the end of the gig, because if you're not familiar with it, then there's a gig every Thursday night. You know, Boris willing. As long as it's not a lockdown, then they have a gig every Thursday night. It's due to start at 8:30.
Never does.
But it's bush time, so it's normally about 9:15. It's a free gig. You can go along, you can go and perform if you want to go and book yourself in. It's a wonderful night out.
It is a wonderful night.
He doesn't do food as such, so he will get food in for you. If you want to take away, it'll have that.
Or a pot noodle if you...
There was a time when they did sausage and chips.
He did actually, yes, at the end of the night.
Well, this is what I'm saying. At the end of the night, what he used to do, he used to microwave all these McCain fries. And he found out that you could get 6 of those Polish sausages for £1 from Lidl round the corner.
Oh.
So he used to get them and cut them up, right? But the chips, he didn't charge for them. And for him, that's quite rare.
Yeah.
So he used to get this great big salver. And when somebody's there at the end of the night, just come into their big punchline, he'd go, "Chips!"
Yes,
and just plonk them on the table, right in front of the acts.
That's true.
Who's about to do their stuff. Oh, it's a legendary place.
It's a legendary and it's unique. It's unique. You go to gigs all around the country. I'm sure you have, Paul. You know, and there's nowhere like the Bush.
Absolutely not.
Nowhere.
No.
And that's why it's so special.
But that's because he owns it.
Yes.
And I said I did this little film, so I got the history of the Bush. And what happened was that he worked for Safeway. He was the assistant manager of Safeway in Bearwood, and they were closing Safeway down. So he was made redundant. So he had this little pot of money. And he said that he was going to buy a disused dairy in Dudley and turn it, a disused dairy in Dudley, which he was going to turn into a disco. And that didn't happen, but he heard about the Hollybush and he'd gone through various hands and not done particularly well. And he had a friend who worked for the council who went to make sure the place was structurally sound. It wasn't just going to fall down because it's on the edge of Netherton.
Yeah.
So it's mining country. And his mate said, no, this is fine. So he bought it. And he said he bought it on April the 1st, 2006.
Of course.
And it was going to be the perfect pub. So he went up to Spoons in Cradley Heath and asked them how to pull pints. And they did. They actually taught him how to do the licensee training and all that. And he had, I think, 6 real ales on. And, of course, no customers. So the real ales went from 6 down to 2. And he used to open all day. But because it's an independent pub and he owns the land and whatever, he can do what he likes. So he opens when he feels like it.
True.
And we used to have monthly meetings during the summer months. We used to get all the local comedians come round and say...
Oh, yes.
And obviously one of the ambitions I've had since I was a child, you think, well, when I grow up, I want a mate who owns his own pub. So you could actually ring him up and say, "Can you open the pub today?" And I'll get some people there. Go, "Yeah, all right." So he'd open the pub at 1 o'clock on a Saturday, and his normal trade starts from 6. So we'd have 5 hours to ourselves, and it was just a wonderful place for carousing and getting very, very inebriated and meeting new people.
Well, within a year, the Bush became the hub, the epicentre of the whole West Midland comedy scene.
Yeah, you're right.
Not just comedy, but spoken word and theatre, local music as well. It's almost like an art centre, a mini art centre,
Well,
isn't it?
he has built it as the art centre,
Yes.
hasn't he?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and he's not being pretentious.
No, and you get, because of that, you get the whole community going there.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah, right.
You know.
But he came at a time, 2006, when there weren't any gigs. And the scene that we have now in the Midlands is because
Yes.
of the Hollybush Cradle
Yes.
Heath. There are people who will deny that, but that is where all the main promoters that we have now,
Yes.
that's where they
spawned
met,
from.
that's where they networked.
That's true. That's true.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So Dave Francis, Wolfie, has done a fantastic job.
And we also need to give thanks to Dave Pounder. You mentioned
Yes.
him the last
Dave,
time you were
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Because he created the West Midlands Comedy Forum.
Yes.
And what I used to do to help Wolfie, and a bit of self-promotion,
Yes.
is I used to compare the gig on a Thursday, then I used to write a review.
Yes.
And at a time for the open spots, it's the first time they've ever seen their name in print. And so other people then got to hear about this.
Yeah.
And they came along just to get a little bit of promotion.
And all of a sudden, there was a West Midland comedy scene.
Yeah.
There were.
And there hadn't been really before. It was all fragmented.
Well, we spoke about this on a previous programme.
Yeah.
About the fact that Manchester and London. I mean, you mentioned Manchester and London, Johnny, and I did.
Yeah.
Previous episode, and it's true. And he brought it all together and made the comedy scene. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Did, and we had pockets of people coming up in the car. So we had the South Wales people like Paul James, who came up with
Yes.
Billy Maguire. We're going
Yeah.
to be hearing from Billy Maguire in a bit. Paul James is now a professional comedian.
Yeah.
You know, he's a regular at the Glee. One of his first ever gigs was at the
Yes.
Hollybush.
There was people from all over the country started to come in.
Yeah, we had Derby, we had Milton Keynes,
Manchester.
we had the Bristol lot.
Kent.
Yeah, the Bristol lot, yeah, they come, yeah.
Kent.
And people forget how many of these people have actually become big stars. A lot of people fall by the wayside, but as we'll hear in the documentary I've done, Joe Lycett played there. Last time I spoke to Joe Lycett, he said that he played the Bush, he thinks, around 20 times.
Wow. Yeah.
That many?
Yeah.
Because he was a student, I think, in Manchester, but when he came back, he used to come down.
Well, like we mentioned, Gary Delaney.
Gary Delaney,
Yeah.
Darren Harriott.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, loads of people have gone through the bush.
According to Jane Hill, who was
Yes.
based at Kettering at the time, they bought James Acaster. So they said James Acaster has played the Bush. These are people who are playing theatres and stadiums now.
It'd be nice if they could recognise that, occasionally mention it, you know.
But we always used to say that, Wolfie and I used to say to people when they come, you know, if you make it, you know, don't forget us. If you make your autobiography, just a little note in the back, you know, just to make sure that we still feel relevant.
And because of a comedy forum called Chortle,
Yes.
Yeah.
the bush was mentioned all over that as well.
Yeah.
And so that's why you get people travelling from all over the country to play this gig.
Yeah.
Well, I was speaking to someone the other week, and they said that wherever they go, people say, "Have you played
have
the
you
Bush?"
played the bush?
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I mean, what other venue has that?
Yeah. Well, my friend Charlie Farley, who took over the comparing duties for 2011, he did it for pretty much the whole year. He kept a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet of all the acts. And he worked out that in 1 year they'd had 300
Wow.
different
Yeah.
performers.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, some people do their only gig at the Bush. For some people, it's a bucket list. Say, I want to do it. I want to do it. And then they do it and go, I'm not doing that again. And some people actually get the bug. There's a guy who's about to break his way through now, and he's also featured on the documentary, a guy called Scott Bennett.
Yes.
He attended a comedy course for our mutual friend Matt Turner,
Yes.
who sadly emigrated to
Canada.
the Chinese province of Canada. And Scott Bennett did his 5th gig there,
Wow.
and he was brilliant then.
Yeah.
And he is someone who still comes back and does Bushfest.
Yes.
Probably got another gig on the night, but he comes along just to show his face.
He's going to go far.
He's absolutely brilliant.
He's hilarious.
He's a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful act. In fact, one of the few acts who carried on
Yes.
during lockdown because he was doing...
From his shed.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's doing
yes.
gigs in his own shed.
Gigs
Wow.
in the shed.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So anyway, I've made a little film about Bushfest. Now, Bushfest is an annual festival that they have at the Hollybush. It's subtitled The Smallest Comedy Festival in the world. You have both performed there. Paul does a wonderful job on the Friday nights comparing the gig, and Johnny, you've headlined. So we'll play the little film and then we'll talk about Bushfest afterwards. Is that all right?
Great, fantastic.
Marvellous.
Yep.
The Hollybush pub in Cradley Heath has been the unlikely hub of West Midlands comedy since 2006. The landlord, Dave Francis, who is affectionately known as Wolfie, welcomes new and established acts every Thursday to play in front of an audience of regulars and the curious. The shows are free and everybody over 18 is welcome. The Hollybush has hosted a 4-day event known as the smallest comedy festival in the world in July every year since 2014. The shows feature new acts, semi-pros and a few TV stars. The idea for the festival came from one of the Bush's longest-serving performers, Billy Maguire.
Well, if you want the truth, right, I was driving home from Edinburgh and on the news it said, today the biggest festival, comedy festival in the world finishes. And I was just driving down, it's 6 hours to drive, and I thought to myself, the biggest festival in the world, that's a big promise. There must be a smallest festival in the world. But then it turned out there wasn't. And when I mentioned that to Dave, he said, we could be that. And we did.
Okay then folks, welcome to Bushfest. Early on, I think we've done well, we've got a few in. So much more than last year. Oh, we did, what a lovely audience. So, there we go.
I thought that we were doing a little thing to show the black country what it sent to Edinburgh. That was the thought I had in my mind, but all of a sudden people like the Falsetto Sock Theatre Company and Milo McCabe started contacting me saying we're up for that, and it was just beautiful.
Performing live outside, English Comedian of the Year, Josh Pugh.
I think there's so much fun you can have at home. Like, have you seen these Alexas? These voice-activated things? They're amazing. You can control everything in your house with them. I haven't actually got one, but my neighbour has. And I worked out if I stand right next to the wall and speak loud enough, I can turn his heating off. He's had his boiler service 3 times this year. It's cost me over £1,000. Great to be here. This is nice. And there's a marquee, gazebo in it. There's a fine line. When's the marquee? I don't know. So I've just been on at Bushfest. I was on at like 4 on Saturday. It was full. It was nice. The regulars are there. There's loads of acts there, people I haven't seen before, and it was brilliant. They've got Dave's bought a gazebo, 170 quid. So it was great. I loved it. I always come to the Bush whenever I can.
So I'm Lavelle Smith, and I'm Midland's best newcomer 2019. Coming to the Bushfest, it's like a ritual for Midlands based acts. You know, Darren Harriott, Joe Lycett used to come here and play here, so you know, new acts like myself, we've got to kind of come and do the same thing if you want to achieve where they've got to. So COVID's finally like it's over, and then Bushfest is here.
Billy Maguire again.
Bushfest is like, you know, a really good Thursday in the bush. It's like that over and over again. It's like the bush squared, and it's very black country. And before I came to the bush, I had no idea what the black country was. I thought it was a district of Birmingham.
Northern Irish comedian Mary Flanagan.
Always lovely to be at the bush, always lovely to be outside of the bush, always lovely to play anywhere that feels like a church fair meets Lord of the Rings, do you know what I mean? Like, is this where the tombola winner's going to go, or is this where we're going to sacrifice somebody? Literally, like, no clue, zero clue.
Hi, yeah, Bushfest. So as someone who is new to Birmingham, the bush gets talked about more than almost any other venue in the city. People, I was here for 2 weeks, like, oh, you've got to do the bush, you've got to do the bush, you're going to do Bushfest, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing the other. And having done it once before, there's not really another venue like it, really.
Birmingham comedy promoter behind Project Mayhem, Shams Zaman.
So I got involved because I felt an overwhelming desire to perform comedy. I've been told I've been funny ever since I was a child, but I thought, after 40, I better give it a go, see if I enjoy it or not. So that's what I did. Then I looked on livebrom.co.uk and it said Hollybush free comedy, open mic. So I went down and I met a lovely fella called David Francis, who's the landlord, and he invited me in. Did my first couple of minutes, went down well, and I've been coming ever since. I love the Bush because it's such a supportive atmosphere. We get a really nice comedy crowd coming from all up and down the UK, and we support each other, give each other notes, recommendations. So this is pretty much the creative hub of the West Midlands all coming together. And this weekend is really special because it's Bushfest. So we've got loads and loads of acts coming down. So we're going to see what they've been up to for the past year. And we inspire each other as well. When I see a really good set, that inspired me maybe to write better than I normally am. And it's won awards as well, hasn't it? You know, it's supporting local comedians, and nationally as well. People are travelling here to practice their stuff. And like I said, I couldn't do it without the Bush.
The UK's only professional deaf comedian, Steve Day, made his first Bushfest appearance in 2021.
Thank you everybody. Hello Bush Outside people, hello. My name's Steve Day and I'm actually Britain's only deaf comedian. If there are any others, I haven't heard. Sorry. That's my only joke, by the way. And if you don't laugh, you're breaking the Disability Discrimination Act. Masks, I wear a mask for other people, but if you're hard of hearing, a mask is a nightmare. I should say I'm not profoundly deaf, so people think I'm making out. I'm severe profound. But 80%, sometimes I say I'm 85% just to add a bit of glamour. And so I'm lip reader, masks are a nightmare, and wearing one is bad enough because I wear reading glasses and I've got hearing aids. And putting a mask on, my face is like buckaroo. It's going to ping at any moment.
I'm Steve Day and I'm at the Bush. I love coming to Bush, and Bushfest especially. Why I'm here is I'm trying to write a new show with my old jokes. So I'm going to tell some jokes and hopefully a theme will emerge as I'm speaking. But I love the Bush, I love Dave. It's lovely in its scrappy beauty.
West Midlands comedy legend, Johnny Sorrow.
Good evening, comedy lovers. My name's Johnny Waddy Sorrow. I'm back here tonight. I've retired really, I have retired, but I got a phone call from the Wolf man, Dave Francis, landlord of the Bush, and he said, Johnny, it's been a long 18 months with this COVID and this lockdown. Do you fancy coming down? You know, give it one more shot. So I thought, well, I've done nothing basically for 18 months, so haven't been out the house, nothing, so here I am. Yes, in this world of darkness, derision and despair, let there be light! Entertainment! Cradley heathens, happy days are here again!
The occasional TV star appears, direct from Vic and Bob's Shooting Stars. Here is Angelos Epithemiou.
What's in the bag, Angelos? What's in the bag?
You run this gig, don't you, Dave? I mean, getting heckled by the bloke that runs the gig.
I had a great time. Audience is sensational. One of the best outside pub industrial estate gigs I've ever done, actually. I'd go as far as to say. Love beautiful Vespers going past, mopeds, cars, but the audience was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Best act at the annual Midlands Comedy Awards, Scott Bennett.
When you have a baby, by the way, I didn't realise this, you have to ring the hospital, right? And a woman on the other end of the phone, who's never met you, knows nothing about you, decides whether or not you can come in and have your baby, right? I rang the hospital and she said, oh, you got ages yet? You got ages. I said, she's in a lot of pain, love. She says, no, just tell her to relax. She suggested this. She said, she needs a distraction. Why don't she read a book? And then she said, why don't you see if she wants to do some ironing? I said, because it's not 1976, look. Then I looked at the pile and thought, won't do itself, you know what I mean? If you have a cesarean, I'm never going to get through that.
Bushfest is an annual event held at the Hollybush pub in Cradley Heath every July. The final word goes to another Bush legend, Mike O'Callaghan.
I've done here now, 3-4 years in a row, and it's been a joy every time. It's just fantastic atmosphere.
atmosphere. You're in a pub, you're outside a pub, you're being heckled by dogs. What's not to love? Support the bush, support local comedy, come down here.
Black Country Extra.
Come down there.
Absolutely.
The Hollybush comedy every Thursday. It is a wonderful night. You'll have a great welcome. You may wake up the next day in complete disbelief going, did that really happen? Try and describe the ambience of the Hollybush.
I'll set the scene about where it is, and please, Wolfie, if you're listening, I am not being disparaging. I'm saying it with a warm affection, as if you've got a problem child that you love just as much as the rest of your children. In fact, more in some ways, because they've struggled through adversity. But right, so Cradley Heath, you head for the mothership that is Tesco's, a great big glow in the sky. And then you go past that, and then the best way I can describe it for aficionados of League of Gentlemen, it looks like the grocer's shop on the edge of Royston Vasey, basically. It's a local pub for local people. No, it's not. It's a lovely atmosphere. People that walk in there that aren't aware, say from down that there London, that are going to make it big, I'll be a star. They'll walk in. It's a great leveller, because you think you're going to get your throat cut.
And that's by the barman.
Yeah. It looks like a Marseille waterfront. Hey, English. So you walk in, and it is just a boozer.
It is, isn't it?
It's a boozer, and people talk with that funny sort of dialect that a Welsh girlfriend of mine once described as, you sound like Furbies. Well, you go in there and you automatically drop into conversation with people about anything and everything.
Yeah.
And you can't separate the acts from the people, because Wolfie will never introduce any of the acts to the MC, the compere. The compere hasn't got a clue. You've got a running list of about 15 acts that's obviously due to start at 8:30, but starts round about 9:30 if you're lucky.
He has got better. He actually went through a period where he wouldn't give you the names of all the people on the night. So he'd give you the next 3 before a break, or the next 20 before a break. And then he'd give you the next lot. I go, but I need to know, because I need to pace the night. I need to know who they are, where they're from, how long they want to do.
It's a cross between Bletchley Park and the Crystal Maze, basically.
It is.
But it's just a warm, fuzzy, lovely feeling. The people are great. And everybody seems to know everybody else, the little coterie that goes there. And it is, I tell you what, it's the closest you get to a pure comedy club.
Yes.
Because people know each other, there's no expectations, and they're willing to give anybody a chance.
And there's no censorship either.
No, there's not.
If you go beyond the line, the audience will let you know.
Yes.
But there's no censorship.
No.
You can do what you want to do, and you take your life in your hands.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. Lovely.
And we need to discuss Wolfie himself, Dave Francis, who actually runs the pub, because he is part of the fabric. It's not a case of you've got a building and then a guy who comes in and runs it. He is part of the experience.
Very much so.
And what was he like the first time you met him, Paul?
The first time, he's always harassed. I've since got to know him, and very quickly, and he's a lovely, warm man. But the first time I ever met him, he just seemed quite harassed because he's trying to do too much. He's trying to work behind the bar. He does have bar stuff occasionally.
Yes.
He's trying to work behind the bar. He's trying to smash a piano up to sort of
put on the fire.
On the fire. He actually did have a piano. Do you remember when he had that piano? He was smashing it up bit by bit. The keys didn't burn very well. And and it smelt like a pet incinerator when he was trying to burn the keys.
Well, tell us about the bath outside.
It's the only man, right? He's got a goodness me. Yeah, it's right. So the gig was outside because of the COVID thing, right? And he got the gazebo. And it was bitter cold. And I quipped that to the audience, that if you get through this, you qualify for the SAS. It was freezing.
Yes.
And so Wolfie lit a fire in a bath.
That was 2020, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and the fire's still going now.
How's the bath?
And he got this fire. It looked like a pagan ritual. I thought he was going to come and sacrifice a maiden on it. Cross between that and the Wicker Man. But he kept putting more and more fire on and dubious substances to burn. Not drugs, people. No. But
not at the bush.
Wouldn't waste that.
No, things that wouldn't burn normally. So he's chucking this stuff on, flat pieces of, it looked like asbestos. And halfway through your sort of punchline or whatever, or the setup of the joke, he'd put another piece on, walk past it, put another piece on, and then he'd lift it up with a stick, so the flames would come. It's like he was smelting iron. But very, very, very quickly, it turned into an inferno, so the audience are getting further and further away. My face started to melt, and so did the bath. And it was just, they should get Red Adair, if anybody remembers. It was like Exxon Valdez going up.
Well, it does help you when you go around the country because you're so used to people walking across the stage or him shouting nonsense from behind the bar or him putting pallets on.
Yeah. You can play anywhere.
Roll with the punches.
You can play anywhere. I've played the Bat Bush, and I've been heckled by asbestos sheets exploding in a plastic bath, mate.
Oh dear. So what's your best memory there?
My best memory. One of the best memories, and I'll still tell it to people now. He doesn't come anymore, but there's this comedian. So we say he was eclectic.
There have been a few down the bush.
You'll know who I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
And even the bush people were scratching their head at him, and they have seen some bizarre stuff there.
Was it anything to do with props?
Oh yes.
Okay.
No. And everybody, and then they're not a cruel audience. They're not a cruel audience, but they were laughing at him, but in a warm, black country friendly way.
Yes.
And but once he actually got a genuine laugh, and he castigated the audience by saying, "Stop laughing, I are used to it. You're putting me off my act."
He's a legend. They love him. They love him down the bush.
He's a total legend.
He only does it about once a year, and I went to Bushfest in 2019, and it's the first one where I filmed every single act. So I do 2 films a year. I do a sanitised one, which I put into the Dave Dinsdale channel. It's all very nice, and then I put a funny one, which is under the Bitterman Films Xtra logo, under that channel, which has all the swear words and all the other stuff and all the stuff that goes wrong. And I decided I was going to film every single act, which I did. And the act in question, I asked if he would give me a lift home. Yeah, I know. So that meant I had to stay for his act. And he actually went on stage at midnight. On a Saturday night. There were 4 people in the audience, and 2 of them left. So, but he did his full hour, and even though I've got a digital camera, and we're not talking about film here, it still ran out of charge, so I didn't get the end of it, and it's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And we left. I got home, I think 1:30. 1:30. Oh, I've had so many wonderful times. The best night I had. Admittedly, there was drink involved, but I stayed. I was still dissecting the comedy night with my friends till 3 o'clock in the morning, And when I left and I was staying with a friend round the corner, the birds were just starting to wake up, and I just felt, oh, isn't life wonderful? And I was walking past the guy who was walking his dog, 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, "How do?" I said, "Evening," and I thought, oh, isn't life wonderful? And I think that's what the bush is like.
It is. I mean, one of my special memories is at the end of the night. It'd been a fantastic gig. Every act had done like brilliant, and the audience were all like, brilliant as usual. And Wolfie decides to sing a Wurzel song.
That's right. Combine Harvester.
Combine Harvester. And I'm not joking. I was up on stage with him because you can't miss out on things like that. And the whole audience were as one.
Yeah.
I've got a brand new Combine Harvester.
Yeah.
Ooh-ah, ooh-ah. And you just can't, write things like that.
I think the most he's had on one bill was, 19.
Wow.
I think he had 19 acts on. And again, the act that Paul's talking about, he was put in, and I was comparing him. So he went on at midnight, and I said, right, mate, you can just say goodbye to them, and I went home. I just left him.
Well, they put him on the end because he never knows when to get off.
Oh, he doesn't. He did a wonderful show. As part, we talked about Scott Bennett. Well, Scott Bennett was part of Matt Turner's comedy group.
Yes.
So they put on a special show at the Hollybush, and they put this particular act on at the end to show the other acts how not to do comedy. And of course, at the end of the gig, he wouldn't get off the stage. So they turned the mic off, they turned the lights off, and in the end, they had to physically drag him. They had to physically drag him off the stage.
And the funny thing is, though, that they specifically said to him, you can only do 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't understand the concept.
He hasn't got a clue what 10 minutes is. No.
And I have made, again, I'm promoting myself and my little films on the Dave Dinsdale film channel on YouTube. But I did do a film about him, and he's got films of his own gigs. So he did the barn. You remember the barn at Whitton?
Oh.
Proper good old-fashioned social club. The next week, the barn closed down. So I don't know if that's related. So I had these discs with these hour-long shows of him, and he did one for Roger over in Roger Swift over in Telford. And clearly the audience were a bit bemused, but they got into it. They really started to enjoy it because it's just a wonderful experience. And off stage, he really is the most wonderful man.
He is.
A lovely bloke.
He is lovely, and off stage, he's funny.
He is.
No, he is. He is genuinely funny. Off, when you speak to him and have banter with him, but for some reason, when he crosses the line,
the Rubicon.
Well, there's lots of people like that. They're the funny guy in front of their friends in the pub. So you should get up there. And then they get behind the mic, and whatever magic they have sitting around a pub table, that goes.
Yeah.
But our friend, and we're still not going to mention his name because if you're in the know, you'll know exactly who we're talking about. He has been signed up to write part of Gary Shaw's autobiography. Gary Shaw is an ex-Villa player.
Yeah.
Played in the 1982 European Cup. I won't give too much away. But our friend actually hitchhiked to the match and then came back with the team.
Yes.
And apparently Gary Shaw went out and said, "Do you remember that guy from Birmingham?" And he came out. Whatever happened to him? I'd love to meet him for the book. And that's what's happened.
Fantastic.
So he is going to be in the autobiography.
He basically hitched all the way from Birmingham to Italy.
Yeah.
What?
Hitched on his own.
Yep.
Didn't have a ticket. Got there somehow.
Yeah.
He was in such a, because he'd been travelling for days.
Yeah.
Hadn't slept. He looked in. All he had on was his Villa shirt, and he looked so bedraggled that they sort of noticed him. The Villa players said, "Are you all right, mate?" And he told them what he'd done. He said, "Oh bloody hell! They give him a ticket to get to the game, and not only that, they took him home afterwards."
And that's loyalty, Jack Grealish.
And that is you know, that is legendary doing something like that.
Yeah.
Because he used to go, back in these days, he used to go to every single game, Villa game, anywhere they played, all over Europe.
Yeah.
Every game he used to go to.
Good grief.
Yes.
And that is a true story.
True story.
And Gary Shaw, I was obviously authenticated it.
Yeah. Yeah. He told us that on the train. We went on the Severn Valley Railway. We went off to Bewdley for a day.
Yes,
That's very nice.
Fantastic. Bridgenorth.
Was it Bridgenorth? Sorry. And he told us the story. And had you not been there, and Wolfie had not been there, wouldn't have believed it was true.
No.
He's fabulous man. Oh, I enjoyed that. I think it's time that we play some old adverts. Is that right?
That's fantastic.
Good. Just like the good old
You
days.
carry on.
Get in the hang of it. Mind the banisters, son.
Oh, I can't hold it, Dad.
Don't worry, son. I shifted more pianos than you've had hot dinners.
Cream, Mr. Shifter. Like refreshment.
Thank you most kindly, madam. One way of shifting it.
When a good cup of tea really counts, you're right to drink Brook Bond PG Tips. It's the tea you can really taste.
Dad, do you know the piano's on my foot?
You hum it, son. I'll play it.
Ah, that's me, taking my third curtain call at the Alhambra Bradford.
Oh, sorry. I thought this was the party.
This is the party.
Oh. Right. Who's for Atari?
What's more, it's my party.
Music hall's dead, sunshine. Pac-Man, Missile Command, Super Breakout, that's where the action is. All linked up, young man?
Just a moment. Right, anyone for Haunted House?
You have to be fast on your feet for this, Oh, don't say that. I want to show you his tap dancing next.
Atari. Simply more fun and games.
Mars, cooling in the fridge. Mars bars a Milky Way. Cooling for a summer day. Ice cool topic, marathon too. Cool on the wholesome fruit. Cool your body for a summer day. Chocolate on the rocks, cool.
All your Mars favorites, cool and delicious, straight from the fridge.
Men just can't help acting on impulse. Impulse is the new range of perfumed body sprays for girls. Wherever a man catches a hint of the perfume, he tends to do irrational things. So don't be alarmed. He's simply responding to impulse.
Try us again in about 6 weeks. All right?
We'd like some fitted kitchen units.
Certainly, sir. Now, this is our very latest design. It's got the...
Are these surfaces for mica?
No, sir, but it's something similar. Like I was
Something
saying.
similar? Look, mate, I don't want something similar. It's for mica or nothing for me.
For mica or nothing?
You've got a nerve, haven't you? Something similar indeed.
I'm
Did you
sorry,
hear that,
sir, I
mate?
was just thinking-
I fought for this country and it wasn't for the likes of you to palm me up with something that isn't for mica. 4 years in the front line when you were just a twinkle in your father's eye, so don't you try it on with me,
very
son.
grateful.
I
Believe
know my rights. I'm a good law-abiding citizen.
You pay your rates.
I pay my rates and I
Pay
don't expect this
regular.
sort of treatment. Well, not leaving this shop till we get Formica.
These days, not everything that looks like Formica is really Formica. Be a nuisance. Insist on Formica and nothing less.
Right. Now, the top prize this year is a rolled gold Parker ball pen that writes for miles. Something we all need, eh? Well, last year, Ethel got a Parker for her 900,428 tickets, but this year, Johnny Seaton has broken all records, over 1 million tickets, including a car transporter complete with 11 minis towed away. He gets this year's Parker ball pen in etched rolled gold. Where is he? Yes.
I'm sorry I'm late. I couldn't find the meter.
Couldn't find...
He's on a yellow line.
Right. Well, this one's mine, Ethel.
I'm a secret lemonade drinker. Always. I'm trying to give it up, but it's one of those nights. Always lemonade. I'm a secret lemonade drinker. Always lemonade. Always lemonade.
Proper adverts for proper people. You're listening to the Nostalgia and Comedy Show on Black Country Xtra. With me, we have our special guest, Johnny Sorrow. Now, before we sign off, Let's talk a little bit about Lauren Hardy. We were talking about a particular act beforehand. You and he go to Ulverston each year.
Yes, well, I'm a member of the Sons of the Desert.
Yes.
And I'm part of the Birmingham branch,
All right.
which is every tent, as they call themselves, have a different name. Our tent in Birmingham is called Laughing Gravy.
Okay, after the dog.
The dog, yeah.
Yeah, yes, correct, very good. And one of the reasons is because one of the characters in Laughing Gravy was a guy called Charlie Hall. Now,
Yes.
Charlie Hall was from Birmingham.
Was he?
He was.
He certainly was.
Washwood Heath, wasn't he?
Washwood Heath.
Was he? Did he play the angry landlord?
Yes.
Him.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he plays mainly angry men.
Yeah.
Isn't the Spoons in Erdington named after him?
Yes, because mainly because our Grand Sheikh John Uller, he lives in Erdington, and he heard that they were building a Spoons, and they like to name some of the Spoons with local, famous local people.
Yep.
He approached them. They said yes, great. So the Wetherspoons in Erdington is called the Charlie Hall.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and me and our mutual friend, we go to this meeting once a month.
So
and
what do you get up to?
Basically
Secret handshakes?
No secret handshakes. We don't do loyal toasts, and we watch Lauren Hardy films.
Do you try and get pianos upstairs?
So what is your favourite Lauren Hardy film?
Oh, that's difficult to say.
Is it?
Our Relations is a particular favourite. Chump at Oxford is a fantastic film.
It is.
Because in that film, Stan Laurel shows how good of an actor he actually is.
Very versatile, yeah.
Gets a knock on the head, becomes Lord Paddington. Completely the opposite of Stan. Stan, and then of course reverts back at the end.
Yeah. Isn't that where he keeps calling him Fatty?
Yes.
Fatty! In that sort of,
Pay attention, Fatty.
Fatty!
So how many people are in your tent?
Oh, about 150.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's probably the biggest tent in Britain.
Johnny Sorrow, legend. Thank you for coming today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, Dave Dinsdale. Pleasure to see you again, Paul Jennings.
And you, Johnny.